And now, the Deeper Thinking Podcast, a space for ideas and reflections in our uncertain times.
Welcome to the Deeper Thinking Podcast. Some men are not angry. They're not bitter or cruel or clinging to some imagined past. They're just quietly lost, disoriented by a world that no longer makes sense of who they are or were told to be. Not because they want to dominate, but because the coordinates of meaning have shifted and no one handed them a new compass. They don't speak of it often. They're not always sure how. But you can feel it in the edges of conversation, in the way their sentences trail off, in the silence that follows a question they didn't expect to be asked. This isn't a crisis of masculinity. It's the quiet undoing of something much older, and in the stillness it leaves behind, something else, something not yet named, might begin to take shape. Some men no longer know where to place their strength. The old maps are gone, or worse, still handed out like they work. Provision, stoicism, control, words that once came wrapped in purpose now feel like traps. But nothing new has taken their place, not really. Just noise, just contradiction. Told to speak but not too much, to lead but not dominate, to feel but not collapse. Many don't resist this shift, they just don't know how to belong inside it. And so a quiet disenfranchisement forms not from power lost, but from meaning misplaced. It's easy to caricature these men as reactionary, fragile, regressive. But that misses something essential. Many aren't clinging to power, they're grieving clarity. They were handed a script that promised coherence if they followed the rules. Work hard, suppress doubt, protect, provide. But the script has been redacted, not rewritten. The result isn't rebellion, it's drift. What do you become when the structure that shaped your sense of self is suddenly suspect and no one tells you how to carry its absence? Some turn bitter, some disappear, others hover, waiting for a permission that never arrives. In the vacuum, other voices rush in. Some promise a return to order, a fantasy of restored hierarchies, crisp lines, certainty. Others mock the ache entirely, as if confusion were a moral failure. Neither offer helps. The first flatters despair into ideology. The second demands shame where tenderness is needed. But in between there's a quieter path, to reckon with the weight of an identity that was never entirely chosen and now cannot be returned. This isn't about rescuing men. It's about letting them speak from the fracture without needing to pretend they're whole. Some men are beginning to name it, not in public declarations or polemics, but in quieter, stranger ways. A sudden stillness in conversation, a confession disguised as a question, a joke that lands just slightly off, revealing more than intended. These aren't failures of masculinity, they're moments of unguarded revision, signs that something is shifting, even if language hasn't caught up. In these flickers, you can feel the possibility of another kind of strength, one that isn't built on control, but on staying when you don't know what comes next. Not fixing, not fleeing, just staying. That kind of staying takes courage, different from the kind men were taught to admire. It's not heroic in the cinematic sense, it's quieter, more porous. It looks like listening without needing to win, grieving without turning it into spectacle, holding space for ambiguity without rushing to resolve it. It asks men to rebuild from within the very thing they were once taught to avoid, vulnerability. But this is not about erasure. It's about reconstitution. The old scaffolding has collapsed. What remains is the chance to build not a new mask, but a new architecture of presence. One that makes room for contradiction, tenderness, and the possibility of being seen without needing to perform. Of course, not every man wants this, and not every space welcomes it. That's part of the tension. This isn't a universal redemption arc. Some are too deep in resentment, some don't feel broken at all. But for those who do, the absence of a map is both the loss and the invitation. To be disenfranchised from the old order can feel like exile, but it can also be liberation, from scripts that never fit, from loyalties that exhausted, from hardness mistaken for safety. The path forward isn't about reclaiming authority, it's about reclaiming the self, even if that self is still being written in the dark. And maybe that's the quiet revolution. Men who choose to remain in the unknowing, who resist both regression and performance. Men who let themselves be remade not by dominance or doctrine, but by attention, attention to others, to themselves, to the spaces where language falters and something more honest begins. It doesn't look like leadership in the traditional sense. It looks like presence. It sounds like someone saying, I don't have the answer, and staying anyway. This isn't about softness for its own sake. It's about depth, about becoming a shape strong enough to hold what was once unspoken and finally making it audible. There's no singular model for this shift, no new masculinity to trade in for the old. That would be another trap. What emerges instead is a multiplicity of ways to be: quiet, conflicted, open, unresolved. Some men will arrive here slowly in fragments, others may not come at all, but those who do will carry with them a different kind of legitimacy, not granted by traditional status, but earned in the subtle work of staying present through their own unravelling. It's not a performance, it's a practice, not a destination, but a way of walking forward without pretending the ground is solid. And if this sounds fragile, it is, but not weak. There's strength in not collapsing the question just to feel finished. There's power in not reaching for certainty when uncertainty is more honest. These men are not lost. They are searching in a landscape that no longer promises orientation. And maybe that's the point. To be disenfranchised from old myths is not to be erased. It is to become available to something else. Something still forming. Something that might, in time, become not just survivable but shared. So much depends on how we listen to them, not to correct or contain, but to witness, to make space for speech that trembles, for strength that stutters, for stories that don't fit the usual arc. If we keep demanding resolution, we'll miss the raw materials of something better. Not a new masculinity, but a broader humanity. Not a doctrine of how men should be, but a field where they can finally ask who they are, without fear of being punished for not knowing yet. This is not the end of men. It is, quietly, the beginning of something else. Until next time.
You've been listening to the Deeper Thinking podcast. Today's episode was narrated by Holly, our digital narrator, who helps bring our ideas to life. For further reading, research, and ways to support the podcast, please visit the episode webpage. Thank you for your positive reviews on Apple Podcasts. Your reviews help keep us visible so others can discover and enjoy our content.